because the talent pool, I mean talent bubble, I mean talent drip in League of Legends is so shallow, he sort of tripped over, and then suddenly he was in the LCK. So I think, like, I didn't miss any important transitions there. That was actually your career path, right?
That's pretty much it to T.
Okay, so that makes sense. We're on to that one. Okay, and also, obviously, unlike everyone else in League of Legends, okay, you're following the transparent path where you join OGN and then you immediately start shilling for other games and attempt to transition to become the #1 caster in another game. Monty's still like trying to like obfuscate that whole path and draw it out really. I mean, that's his way, you know, that's his nature naturally. Like, everyone else just joins OGN, immediately starts just whoring out to 2 or 3 games maybe even, and then when they become really big in that are like, I could leave at any time. You could leave at any time. So how are things going at the moment, LCK?
I mean, as far as the casting goes, it's great. Outside of the hour-and-a-half pause that Monty and I experienced the other night, but other than those few discrepancies, everything's fantastic. As far as the league goes, everything's insane. Yeah, I guess is a decent way to put it, because we don't know who's the best team, we don't know who's the worst team outside of CJ. It's just it's all over the place right now, but it's in a really good spot.
So here's the thing, Achilleos. A lot of people are thinking right now, okay, this is like one of those old episodes where they would bring on like Froskurin or something, and they would allow those people to speak about other regions that they don't cover, potentially like, ruin their whole careers, you know, all that fun stuff. Like, raise the stakes. They're thinking to themselves, like, does this Achilleos guy, I mean, does he know about NA? Does he know about EU? Well, joke's on them, because I've now waited 5 minutes for the run. So everyone who's watching this episode, I've got 2 pieces of information for you. So, bad news. This episode is only about LCK. What? That's false advertising. Good news. 5 minutes means that your view counts as a hit. Doesn't matter if you turn it off right now. In fact, do it. Turn it off if you don't want to. You'll probably actually free up some of the server load, so everyone else will get a better experience. They'll all be guaranteed max quality. So I dare you to turn this episode off right now. Not watching it all. See, I'm even using reverse psychology there, because then some of them are like rebels in one generation. And they're like, oh, I'm not going to turn it off because you tell me to, man. I'll watch this show even if I don't care about Korea and just judge whoever it is based on their opinions on Korea. Because as a League of Legends fan, I don't require any facts to make my opinions on the game or people who in fact cast it for a living. There we go. I think I've covered everyone there. I've actually spoken for everyone and said everything that mattered there. But still got a show to do. So despite the fact, Monty, as I've just pointed out, anyone who actually clicked, essentially we've got their view now. So we can end this at any time. We can end this in 5 minutes if we want. No, actually, what I'll do is, I just realised, I almost tricked myself there, Monty. If I ended it in 5 minutes, they'd see the video was like 11 minutes long and they'd know something was up. So what I would do is, I would use one of the old school like YouTube anti-spoiler techniques, and I would make the video last an hour and a half. So if you see the video as an hour and a half now, obviously, we didn't really talk that long, it just ends in 5 minutes, but you won't know that until you click forward through the video. So, again, it doesn't matter, I win regardless, but we'll pretend like we're going to do it for an hour and a half. So everyone who sees an hour and a half video now, it didn't really last that long, obviously, right? So let's pretend to fill an hour and a half. So 5 minutes or so, let's make it quick. No one really cares about LCK. It's like, stuff happens, people win games. Oh, someone like won a game off SKT, but why doesn't that matter, Monty? Well, here's why. Patches change, fakers still fake it, and then the season ends and then they win. Oh, and maybe at some point during that, like, sort of entire season of all, like, you know, like 700 games, there has to be like a period of about 14 and a half games where Monty actually like believes in love again, starts to believe like faith is possible, like you can achieve wonders through the imagination and belief, and take those beautiful iridescent transcendental ideas, bring them down into the mundane, profane world and make them into beautiful League of Legends, then KT will win the championship. In that, I love that week, Monty. That week is one of my favourites. I always enjoy it. I always want to see how does he come out at the end. Does he become more cynical? Does he still keep that little fire burning inside him? I don't know how it's going to be this week. So I'm waiting for that to happen because it's got to happen eventually. And you know what? No spoilers, guys. This might be the week. This could be the week. It's getting pretty good. But on the Monty's like terror threat level, we're at a solid amber right now. I reckon we're heading there. So here's where I want to start. Actually. I want to start.
Before we get into the Korea thing, I think you did mention something important that Achilles can speak to, because one of the things you started off by saying with the show is that there is like a dearth of League of Legends talent when it comes to developing casting, and I think that Achilles is the perfect guy to actually speak to that, because basically what happened with Riot, and I know we've discussed this on the show previously, is that what happened with Riot was really interesting, because obviously Riot themselves found themselves in a situation where they did not have enough casting to actually expand into best of twos and best of threes in North America and Europe, and there hasn't been an amateur scene that casters have had access to, because previously what Riot did with even the Challenger series was broadcast by, for the most part, LCS casters. And then when we look back at what happened where amateur casters could come from, in the early days of the scene, like obviously I came out of MLG, there were people who came out of IGN and IPL before LCS started. Now, when the circuit became codified and they said the professional teams can only play in the LCS, they had their internal casting team, and they, again, had the challenge that most is casted by casters who also casting LCS. And then what happened after that is that when endemic tournaments started to spin up, like the LPL. So if you remember, people like Froskerin and Pyrotechnics came out of the LPL English cast, where they were volunteers because Kelsey Moser and Froskerin were able to basically contact China and negotiate the opportunity to have an English cast. Now, this is not done by Riot, it was done independently, so they had to assemble and organize their own casting team for the LPL. Now, many of these people now are working full-time as casters in League of Legends, but what happened was Riot came in and they said, we're taking the English language rights to the LPL, outsourced it to the the Sydney office. But then, as soon as people started saying, okay, well, we'd like to do some English language broadcasts of Brazil and Japan, Riot declared that they own all of the English language broadcasting rights for esports of League of Legends. And even though these leagues, like Brazil and Japan, had people who wanted to do it for free to cast English for these regions, Riot said there still is no English cast for these regions. And basically what that has done is it's made it very difficult to identify new casting talent. And what happens every year during the off-season, whether it was the Alpha Draft Amateur Tournament, Challenger Tournament, or the APK Tournament, which Achilles did this last year with some of the other amateur casters, there's basically a window of time at the very end of the year where amateur casters have a chance to cast NA Challenger teams in independently sponsored tournaments, if these tournaments even exist. I don't know if one's going to exist this year, but they have for the last couple of years. And that's one of the only times you actually get access to see how to develop amateur casting talent. It's a very small window.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, even with just NA Challenger tournaments, you can't even take the teams that are remaining in the Challenger series. It's, you know, it's just the new teams that are up and coming. If they are in any way affiliated with Riot in the Challenger tournament, then they can't play in a random league like the HCC league that we ran. So it's a really interesting system. But I mean, I kind of came in right on the back end having online tournaments and like weeklies that would run. I mean, granted, they were mostly like silvers to like flat teams that are playing against each other every week, but that's what I basically got started in and developed was casting leagues that would just offer things like RP prizes that Riot would send to them. They had like a decent relationship, so the teams would maybe get like a couple thousand. Yeah. So if you get like a couple thousand RP and then maybe like a skin or something like that, like a specific skin, like the Triumphant Rise skin or something. But
okay,
I'm just saying, like that's how they would offer up. That's what they would offer up to people. But that doesn't really happen anymore. You don't see these weekly tournaments sprouting up, and as you mentioned, these tournaments for Challenger just kind of happen at the end of the year in the off season, and then we see a little bit of talent. There's like a month-long window, and then it's like, well, back to your day jobs, everybody. You can't cast anymore.
See, the thing is, when you say that, like, obviously, if someone's just, like, doing their first tournament, maybe they could just get paid for that. I would obviously say to the person organising that tournament, like, you know, your company does make millions of dollars in that. Like, people sort of need money to do things that are sort of like occupations. And then, obviously, some incredibly outstanding players. Let them have rice skins. Let them have rice skins. Triumphant Rise. Why can't they all just have triumphant rice skins? Like, yes, sir, if you say so. Well, one condition, my friend. Only if Rise is not in the meta. We're not made of money. Like, some crazy shit. No, the other problem they've had in the scene, of course, guys, if we're being real here, is that a lot of the people who are naturally talented casters and have built up their careers actually held secret aspirations outside of casting. So it was hard to keep them in casting, you know, and so they had to be lured back. So, I mean, an obvious example is Jat famously was choosing between should he be a caster, should he be a level designer. There was that great guy that they had in, like, Season 1 of League of Legends called Daniel Z. Klein, who actually ended up being sort of like a Captain America type figure who's fighting Nazis everywhere, even out of time, you know. Interesting guy. There was obviously the D-Man, who it turned out actually, I thought he was like a pro caster. I would have been quite cynical and thought he just only cared about casting. But actually, above all else, he valued love and the romantic, the Venusian arts, I guess you could say. He valued that above everything and gave it all up for love. And you know what? He should have gone the meatloaf route. He should have said, "I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. I won't give up casting League of Legends," because that was kind of the bag. Then there was Deficio, who secretly aspired to be a general manager, but not secretly enough. And then there obviously was Crepo, who should never have been the caster in the first place. He is essentially just the world's most overglorified LOL King support build guide creator. But he just wants to do it on live TV and during a match where there are other alternatives than support. So anyway, as I've established, there's talent, but it's hard to keep doing the game. Monty's maybe giving you something here. But Achilles is here now. He's proud, and we're going to continue on to do a countdown.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight because I think there are opportunities. There aren't enough opportunities for amateur casters in the scene, and it really has created a lot of scary issues, I would say, in League of Legends when it comes to developing new talent, just because there hasn't been that same support for the amateur casting scene, and I don't really understand why, especially for analysts, because even in the circumstance that Achilles talks about here, where there were weekly cuts, that's great for play by play Achilles, but you can't actually go into the professional game as an analyst under those conditions. It's not really possible because the teams are doing the same kind of advanced lane swaps, which makes it harder to identify color casting talent, and giving away even Japanese or the Brazilian scene is enough. I mean, those teams are enough to actually, I think, have quite a bit of value for identifying upcoming casting talent. So that's been one of the disappointing factors to me about how League of Legends has been operated by Riot, and I think it has actually caused some regression in finding good casting talent. And now that we came to a point halfway through this year where Riot needed more casters because they have simultaneous streams going on in both regions, I think that problem has become even more pronounced.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think it's still an ongoing issue that they still need more casters. They're still looking. They just posted on, their website that they're looking for another play-by-play and analyst in Europe, I believe. So they're still having this trouble being able to find people, and it really was just a situation of shooting yourself in the foot by taking away these circuits and all of these opportunities. So, I mean, there's still some orgs out there, if anyone's watching that wants to become a caster, like High School Star League, that usually regularly needs people, and you'll at least get frequency of games. But like Monty said, you're not going to be getting like professional level of play. So if you want to be an analyst, it's not really the best thing, but it still is experience. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot.
Okay, so let's dive into LCK. So I will start a storyline which was at the beginning of the season, because it was one that kind of ended the season interestingly, which is the Africa Freaks. Because when the season started, people were like, holy shit, they're actually going to be really good this season, and it wasn't just like a flash in the pan last season, maybe they're going to be super good now. But they have kind of drifted down as the weeks have gone on. So where are the Africa Freaks right now, Achilles?
They're in 7th place, I believe.
Okay, that was also like, not just like a logistical question as much as like,
Okay.
you know,
Metaphorically,
where are they?
Right now they're really an up in the air team. We haven't gotten a good grasp, pretty much of the whole league. I think we know that it's very competitive, but as far as where everyone's going to be resting at the end of round 2, of course, it's really like we just don't know. So Freaka Freaks right now are in 7th place. I think they're like 4 and 5, so they've lost more than they've won. And they had like a really rough start, like the first couple games, like just losing here and there, but then coming back and then beating SK Telecom, suddenly looking significantly stronger and starting to do better. So it seems like they're going to start climbing back up, but at the same time there's multiple other teams around them that are starting to climb as well, MVP being a huge one. So they're in an interesting spot. I think that they could end up in top 5 again, but I don't know if they're going to be able to break into that top 4, top 3 this split either.
What do you think, Steve? Is there a resurgence coming? Stay where they are? Do we go down?
I think they did take out MVP recently. Obviously, I don't think we can overlook their victory over SK Telecom last week, but I guess I'm not super high on them right now. I don't know exactly how they're gonna end up when it comes to the end of the season rankings, just because I think Longzhu and MVP will challenge them the longer the season goes on. ESPL's only a match back, so I think Junior may not make the playoffs this season with their current form, but depending on patches that could go back, I think the Freaks do well when they can play more tanky style of top laners, which isn't really the meta at a given time. So we may see them bounce back if the mid lane focus returns. I think Songyun in particular he got a pentakill the other night. Last night, I think that was an important step because Songyun was actually one of their better players in their winning streak at the end of spring. So if he returns to form, maybe they can crack into the wild card match in the playoffs again, looking at 5th or maybe even 4th seed. So they have talent, but putting it together has been troublesome for them.
Okay, so Achilles, is Sangyun the star player of their team? Is he the guy, like, where does he match up in LCK? Is he approaching elite status? Because, I mean, obviously, as a casual viewer, I only know that they already have a world-class player. His name's Ix. He's the best top player in the world, so... Aside from that, okay. So who's the star? Whereabouts are they now?
Honestly, it's really hard to pinpoint because they've all looked good and then also looked really bad. Snowflower, especially at the start of Marseille, the first half, that was phenomenal. It was a gorgeous run. And then he had several games where he just completely tanked out. And through Songyun has had similar experiences. But Songyun, like last split, Songyun was, I would say, like, the big person on the team. Like, he looked awesome in the carry role, but that was also a time when Kalista was much more in the meta. He still do bring it out, but it's not usually as receptive in like 6.10 onward. So it's really a niche, and a lot of times doesn't find success. So that was like his big one that really made him shine. So he doesn't have that at his disposal anymore. Still having strong performances on the Sivert for getting a pentakill last night. Obviously, a really good thing, but I would have to say that right now it's probably Lyra, I think, would be one of the strongest people on the team. He's always been performing well, but now he's especially kind of like starting to come up a little bit more than years ago than he did in
Yeah, I also think it's really important to keep in context the Africa Freaks wins and what happened when they went on a winning streak last season, because when we look at the hype around a player like Ixu or Songyun, you have to keep in mind what exactly they were playing. And Ixu and Songyun were direct beneficiaries in the spring season of the fact that Mickey had to be banned out. Or teams thought they had to ban him out, which meant that we saw a lot of Twisted Fate and Zed bans, so pocket bans coming through. And this meant that Ixu and Songyun could get very consistently Poppy and Kalista, which were two of the most popular and powerful picks in the meta at the time. And both of them, despite being frequently banned against other teams, these were their most played champions in the spring season. And I don't think that's true. I have to check, but I don't think that's true of any other top 4 AD carry player in the league. So once people figured out that you didn't necessarily have to ban these champions, when Zed lost pretty much all viability as a result of nerfs this season, we haven't been seeing the Twisted Fate and the Zed bans anymore. All of a sudden, we see more traditional bans against Africa, and because I think of Ixu's lowish champion pool, that hasn't been as much of a threat.
So people said that he said in the show, possibly carrying boxing will become more and more prevalent now. Now in the past, mainly you did see a lot of tank play from Ixu. In a world where we reverse the jungle spot again and you have to go to tanks in the jungle, will Lyra suffer if that is going to happen? Will that happen as like a widespread trend? Before he was playing the games last season, he plays the Rek'Sai. He's such a champion.
Rek'Sai is a tanky jungler. He's been playing more Rek'Sai than anything else and winning some pretty impressive MVP performances on that. I think with Ixu, the question is, he keeps going back to Poppy, even though Poppy is not a great pick for him. Now we've seen the Aurelia, which gave a little bit more confidence, I think, in Ixu, because his individual performance on Aurelia was pretty good. But otherwise, Maokai and Echo are up there for him. At least he's got the Echo to fall back on them, the decisive points in their victory over SKT. So that's nice.
So, okay, Achilles. Few teams can beat SK Telecom this series. I mean, we saw when we went over MSI, just winning a group stage here. So how did Africa Freaks win a series off SK Telecom?
Double kill.
I mean, I think they outplayed. They were playing really well.
Right, so it's an Africa Freaks comp. Thing is, you have to be Africa Freaks. You beat them, right? Okay.
Yeah, they just actually finally started looking cohesive again, the Africa Freaks. I mean, they did beat them with a 2-0 in Spring Split, so they've shown that they have the potential to do that. SK Telecom's been on a decline. It seems like, I don't know, they're having individual misplays, and it almost seems like burnout is actually becoming a factor at this moment, because they didn't get much of a break after MSI. They've been on a high note and suddenly starting to decline. I'm just trying to like rack my brain, like what could be going wrong? Like maybe they're starting to get a little bit tired of all of this League of Legends, but I mean, even people that are very consistent, such as Wolf and Duke this list, they're starting to really rapidly decline. Wolf and Duke both plummeted. Wolf last night, if you watched the game against DSC ever, he was just face checking brushes, getting killed. Early on in the game, and just overall having really poor performances, and it just seems like the cohesion's not there at the moment. I think SKT just kind of needs to take a good little break here now that round 1's over, just clear their heads and be like, okay, round 2, this is where we come back, this is where we start performing again, we play like a team, which hasn't been there, and Freak of Freaks in that match just were completely, they were pretty much on the same page, always making the calls and following up as a team, and then just coming out on top.
Sure. Okay, Monty. SKT's already lost a bunch of series. Admittedly, last summer they also lost some series. They worked their way through it. They got better. What do you actually think? Oh no, actually, I'm thinking of the spring.
Spring.
They lost
in
one
the middle.
series to Samsung.
Okay, so what happens this split? Like, have they declined since MSI? Is it just working their way back into league form? What do you think of it?
I think they struggled with MSI. I think that they had issues, obviously, in the group stage. That they had problems with the jungle and being able to put on adequate pressure. I think that's a problem that is continuing now the deeper we go into this season. Last night we saw Bless Kyle all over flank and Bengi. So the pressure they're getting from the jungle is basically non-existent, and a lot of the time the junglers are dying and contributing more to their enemies, their opponents, than they are actually to the team of SKT itself. So I think that's a big problem, because the laning has actually been good. If we take a look at Duke as an excellent laner, Wolf and Bang, when they won the game last night against ESC, it was because they were ahead in lane. But that's the jungle problem where they feel like they're constantly playing without a jungler, basically, or their jungler is actively helping the other team by giving over kills. That's one of the primary issues, and the secondary issue is that they are going too aggressive. They're playing too aggressively and making a lot of mistakes as a result.
No escape.
Okay. They'll tower dive. Faker will die randomly. They're not communicating well about where each other are on the map, which results in them fighting 5v3 or 5v4 frequently.
And that aggression used to pay off like really well for them. Like they used to be able to get away with it, but everybody else is like on the rise, so now they can actually deal with that hyper aggressive play that SKT puts out, and they suffer for it. I mean, you mentioned Blank not basically not being there and giving kills over game one. He was 0-4-2 on the left side. Couldn't do a damn thing. I mean, even Bengi, when he came in for game two, he had at least a positive score line, but it still wasn't like a massive carry performance like we're used to seeing from them from at least the start of the split.
So previously it looked like the way they decided between the two junglers was mainly just what the meta was, and then if someone had a good run of form, they just kept with them. Okay, they stuck with what was working. Obviously, in the green way, people lose games. It's very likely they're at least going to try to bring the other guy in. I don't know. As it stands right now, you had to pick one of the junglers to go forward. You didn't have to pick right now.
I think SKT should explore some buyouts of junglers. I think you maybe you can look at this guy named Flawless, very good mechanics, very aggressive jungler. Maybe you could train him up at the time left before Worlds and see if he can do it. He's on in a challenger team called Spenu right now. That'd be a great one. I don't know if this problem is fixable because yes, you're right that we saw it previously with. They would switch off depending on what was needed, but in terms of the meta and with Rek'Sai and Elise coming back, we were going to see more Bengi, but even Bengi has looked not great as for when we consider his mechanics right now. And Bengi has been a streaky player mechanically for basically his entire career. He does have pretty big highs and lows. We've seen him in 2014 sort of drop off the face of the earth mechanically, and we may be seeing that again right now.
That's one metaphor. I preferred climbing to a dumpster and make that his natural habitat. The metaphor. It's okay. Okay, Achilles, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, it's just odd that Blank is like simultaneously having the same thing. He really showed up, like, IAM was like, and then start performing, coming into his own, and they come back from IAM and start dominating again. And at the final, for the straight split, take down Rock Tigers. It's like, okay, Blank is finally good. And suddenly, it's just, now he's on basically the same level of Bank, and every now and then they move out above each other, but for the most part, they're just like stagnant in just this weird pit that they cannot climb out of. And it's just so bizarre to see that happen. But yeah, like Bengi, I mean, starting off, it seemed like he was going to improve. Like starting off, like his first game, like he had some really weird pathing, and just, like was wandering around the jungle like a drunk man, like didn't know where the hell he was going. Just like swaying back and forth through the jungle, and then the next game, it's like, okay, like, now this looks a lot cleaner. Like, wow, Bengi's back, the jungle is back. He's gonna take over the starting spot for SK Telecom, and hit this point, and now it is just very quickly going down.
So there's been teams in the past who could even be very good, not necessarily have to play the best junglers or junglers are super adapted to the current patch. For SK Telecom, one of the consequences if these players stay at this level that they're at the moment, how does it affect their style, do you think?
I think it puts too much emphasis on the lanes, and the enemy jungler is just going to have a field day. It's like they're playing 4v5 in the lane phase, and it's just not going to work, and it's not going to be acceptable. It's not going to beat many of the teams in this league who have more cohesive identities and teamwork. We saw Samsung starting out strong this season, and that was obviously a bit of a surprise because Ruler has been kind of a revelation for the team. But after we go back to a more top lane focused meta, Cuvée may not be the best player for that, but we also see KT rising as a result. So what I'm saying is that if we switch those metas again, and you go back to a more data carry focused meta, then Samsung's likely to improve. Perhaps KT will go down at that stage. But regardless, there are going to be enough teams that are meta appropriate to, I think, secure a nice position for teams that are not SK Telecom. Because there are other that have superior teams.
What do you think of carries on SK? Jungle issues aside, how do the carries stack up? Who do we expect more from?
Well, I think the carries right now are in great form. If we actually look at just raw damage stats, Faker and Bang are both in the top 5 in the league when it comes to damage per minute. So these guys are definitely delivering. Again, it's not the individual performance. They're frequently doing very well in the laning phase. It's that they take bad fights. They take bad fights. Or they're behind. And that's the problem.
I mean, last night, most impossible that happened for SK Telecom, just putting a huge toe behind the field, just wanting to fight again, but as we mentioned earlier, that they're playing way too aggressively, just throwing it back. They need to take a little Jin Air and like CJ and just take a step back, ride the wave until you hit that like 35-40 minute point, and then fight. Just play the lanes out, because they usually do win the lanes, but Bang and Faker definitely doing well, but I would say Duke, considering how he started this season, or this split, has probably been the biggest decline outside of the jungle, at least in my opinion.
Right, okay. I mean, that's strange, though, because if everyone tells me, right, you're going to now be able to play Aurelia, all these carry tops, you'd be like, oh, great, this is Duke's time, right? Now it's his turn to take over and carry the fuck out of his lane, etc. What's the issue, do you think? Just purely individual form?
It's just, I don't know. Monty, you want to go first on this one? I really don't even know what's wrong. I mean, the one that stands out in my mind is just poor choices from time to time, because like the Fiora is just this bad memory that I have for him, because that was a really poor performance. But even trying like Rumble last night, it just didn't work out. I feel like he needs to stick with the ones that he's very good at. Trundle is the one that comes to my mind, because he just completely crushed people with that champion. But sometimes when he tries these new ones, it's just not working out.
Yeah, I think his laning phase has been good, and his Aurelia was the reason why. It was one of the major reasons why they pulled out a victory last night. That has not been the major cause of SK Telecom's downfall, because on an individual level, again, the laning phase is actually, he has been winning fights again more consistently. Started out the season looking better, coordinating well with the teleport. That's sort of fallen off again, back to where it was, sort of pre-MSI, and that's not a good place for them to be in. Again, his coordination with the rest of the team, sometimes he's just not at these spikes that happen, and whether that's on Duke or that's on the rest of his team not giving him adequate information, I don't know. But it certainly is happening.
So in terms of individual players, obviously a big name for SK Telecom is still back. Now, I saw an interesting discussion, because I actually read Kelsey Moses' article, where she tried to compare contrast depth and ask who is the best AD carry right now. And I noticed there was some backlash from people who, I can't know how much they watch LPL, who tried to just paint it as like, oh, it's just because LPL casters want to believe they have some super duper world's best player as well, and they're playing up depth. You know, obviously Bang is like the supreme leader, no one can challenge him. Where do you stand on this at the moment? How is Bang doing, and is he the best AD carry in the world? Is that your...
I honestly can't really have an opinion on this, because I have not watched enough LPL this season to...
No, that's no fun. Listen, I'm revoking your Reddit license. You're no longer allowed to post. You've betrayed everything the site stands for.
Watching LPL is what Reddit stands for? I could have...
No, it's not watching LPL, but giving a very strong opinion that everyone who does watch LPL is definitely wrong about LPL. That's what Reddit stands for. Okay.
In that case, Deft is the best in the world. I also don't watch pretty much any China.
To your knowledge, is Bang the best AD carry though?
I think that Yeb probably is the best AD carry in Korea right now. Because on the other top teams, Ruler is a rookie and has shown some weakness in terms of his positioning and overextending on the map. We look at some of the other top teams. KZ, I certainly wouldn't say that about Arrow. Prey, I guess, is the other argument that you could make. Because Prey is actually having an extremely good individual. So maybe you could say would be another person to include in that very short.
If he's playing it, okay, maybe Fury inches in at like fourth or fifth. But yeah, Prey and Bang, and then probably Arrow after.
I don't know. About Arrow. I have mixed feelings about Arrow.
He's been doing better. I guess maybe you could put Ruler in there, but I think Arrow is probably about top 4 or 5 at this point. I don't know. He's been doing a lot better.
Okay, so you mentioned Fury. Now, obviously that was one of the storylines on Longju last season, which was because he was like banned or suspended or whatever, he couldn't play initially. But from his days in the past, he had a lot of hype on him. This guy was really good, he's like an up-and-coming player, etc. As a team, what the fuck happened to Longju Gaming? Like that whole thing of like, they could be the new best team in Korea. Oh shit, we've actually seen them play, they're terrible, fuck. What happened now? Any hope left?
Every week seems to have more hope for Longju. It's super hard to tell where. Yeah, it's. Oh man, like that's such a hard question to answer because Longju, you keep hoping that they can get it together. You keep seeing certain performances by them where they actually look like they may be getting something done. They keep Samsung, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen now? They got 2-0'd by the Tigers, they got 2-0'd by Telecom. So, the read on Longju, I think this was in my eyes. 2-0 by Amazon also, so they've lost their last 3 matches consecutively. I don't know. I think that maybe now the hope is gone, but hard to say. Every time you think they're dead, they somehow manage to get scrape an impressive win out.
Yeah, they were just the team that, like, at the start of last split, everybody freaked out because they were so good themselves with talent. Oh my god, they have plays, they have all of these players, they're historically really good, oh my god. And that's all they have is face value, no cohesion, no teamwork, and they haven't been able to piece together a working roster. Still, even cutting down to 7 members instead of 10, they now have, a smaller player pool than CJ, who I think has the most the biggest roster right now with 9. They still haven't been able to figure out what the problem is and how they can get things to work. They tried Crash finally the other day. That didn't work out. It's just they just seem like they just don't even know what the issue is. Like, they are the team, they're looking at it and they still just say I don't know what we're doing wrong.
Are players like Chaser, like Coco, still top players?
Coco's at least been doing better on Vladimir, but the synergy just hasn't been there. It seems like when you put these two guys together that they just can't come up with any kind of, as Achilles is saying, teamwork or cohesion, and it's hard to pinpoint their issues. Again, Fury looking better gave hope, at least for Longju fans, because on the surface, you take any of their players and you say, okay, this guy is actually objectively, in isolation, a pretty damn good player, but it doesn't work when they actually play together for whatever reason. Last season too, especially with actually one of the most dominant players in the top in the entire league, but has actually translated to victories because they can't coordinate themselves well enough to pull out.
How much of it is players themselves seem like a good team together? Specific positions maybe don't work, or how much is stylistic, the overall style of the team, the identity isn't really logical or doesn't work for the players?
I don't think they have an identity as a team. I don't think they ever really established that because they've been just so scattershot in their approach to the game. I think that if anything, they need to take a step back and say, okay, we're just going to work on one style of team composition or strategy and see if they can develop from there. Because right now, it's just kind of a mess, and they're trying too many things. At least last season, when they were picked up a few wins, when they were good at the we got to see the Jace come out, we got to hear like some strange sort of offset pocket there. That was what they were best. But we haven't seen as much of that for whatever reason.
Okay, Achilles, what's your take?
I was gonna say, like, I had some hopes of them coming into this split, because in spring it seemed like Longzhu was basically like a poorer version of TSM at the time, because they had Yellow Star, they had Svenskeren and Hotzer, and Double F, Bjergsen. So it was the same kind of thing. It was like, we have all these big names, superstar roster, we're gonna kill it. And they really started off, and they were struggling really heavily. Yeah, they ended up making it into the final, losing to CLG. So they were able to kind of bounce back. But now, coming in, having that dominance, that's what I was sort of maybe not to the same level that TSM has dominance.